A Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy stops and seconds later shoots a 20-year-old man armed with a cell phone. It's video we showed you for the first time today. We've seen high-profile police shootings nationwide. Eric Harris in Tulsa, Walter Scott, South Carolina, Michael Brown in Ferguson, and locally, Seth Adams.
Its kind investigation, the Contact 5 investigators and the Palm Beach Post teamed up, tracking hundreds of area police shootings over the last 15 years. What stood out? One agency quick to defend its deputies before the evidence is in. Here's Contact 5 investigators Katie Legrone with the line of fire.
This is a prime example how dangerous this job is.
And then he started shooting and shooting and shooting. I watched my son fall to the ground.
The deputy took the action that he had to take to neutralize the threat to him.
If they tell you to stop and put your hands up, you need to put your hands up, you know.
And it's the citizens' duty to submit to our authority.
So you telling me that's okay to kill him?
You only get what you deserve.
Andy Jackson lost part of his skull.
Everybody said, why are you shooting?
Jamil Murray, his life. And Dontrell Stevens will never walk again. They are among the 114 people who since 2000 have been shot at by a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy.
The deputy's lucky to be alive. He was in a fight for his life.
And their cases are among more than a dozen we found, exposing the failures of how Palm Beach County's largest law enforcement agency investigates shootings.
And started reaching. All right, like he had something.
That involve their own.
We don't expect our deputies to be assaulted. We don't expect them to have their lives placed in jeopardy.
And how far the agency is willing to go to protect them.
I got your back. You know that. I know. Hey, you know that. Yeah, I know.
Less than 8 minutes before this moment, this exclusively obtained dashcam video, never seen before by the public, shows Dontrell Stevens talking on a phone as Deputy Adams Lynn trails him. He gets off his bike with a cell phone in his right hand, walks toward the deputy, and 4 seconds later is shot 4 times. Stevens had nothing in his hands but a cell phone.
He starts backing away from me, and as soon as he's backing away,
moments later, the deputy can be heard on the radio.
I'm like, get on the ground, get on the ground.
Put up your hands, stop what you're doing, and comply with us.
That day, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw was on TV.
There's nothing in the rules of engagement that says we have to put our lives in jeopardy to wait to find out what this is and get killed.
Months later, investigators from the state attorney's office and PBSO ruled the shooting justified. But there was a problem.
There is no recording of any commands ever made to Dontrell Stevens.
And as soon as he's backing away, I'm like, get on the ground, get on the ground.
The Deputy Sheriff Lynn's statements, recorded statements following this shooting, were absolutely false. Internal Affairs completely ignored that evidence. Dontrell will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair.
Attorney Jack Scarola is suing the sheriff and deputy.
Put up your hands.
The sheriff talked about the shooting then, but won't now because of the lawsuit.
And they have something in their hands, and they're going to make it a move towards the deputy. They're going to defend themselves.
Our obligation in law enforcement is to conduct a complete and thorough investigation.
Dennis Root is an excessive force expert.
Well, if you just arrived on scene and 10 minutes later you're telling the media that it's a good shooting, how much of the investigation could really have been completed?
But for Sheriff Bradshaw, it's become the norm.
No question in your mind was justified then.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind the deputy did what he had to do to save his life.
That's the part, from a law enforcement perspective, that concerns me the greatest.
The individual was fooling around with his hands in the front there.
In 2009, he was on the record just hours after an off-duty deputy shot and killed 28-year-old Jamil Murray outside this West Palm Beach market.
The deputy reacted in the way that anybody else would in his position to save his life.
According to PBSO, the deputy feared Murray had a gun. It was a knife.
Everybody said, why did you shoot him?
We know from our training that somebody that's within 10 feet of you, which this was, can come over and stab you.
But he wasn't. The final report actually put Murray more than 20 feet away. And it didn't include witness statements.
You tell me to throw on the ground, let me throw on the ground. Don't shoot me first then. Say you was in danger.
Including the market's bookkeeper, who also described Murray obeying the deputy's orders to put down the knife, even answering no sir when asked if he had a gun. The officer was cleared, the shooting justified. We found since 2000, PBSO has justified nearly all its deputy-involved shootings. And in deadly ones, the clearance rate is even higher.
Is it a red flag to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Palm Beach County Public Defender Carrie Hawat.
You just think on average there's got to be some mistakes that are made.
Like the mistake that left Andy Jackson scarred.
Where'd you get shot?
Right here in the forehead, right here in the middle, right here.
His is one of the few shootings PBSO flagged as a bad one. But what he did have in common with many others, he was young, black, and unarmed. We found across the board deputies are disproportionately shooting young black men who are unarmed.
We don't have the luxury to say, okay, you know what, we'd only like to go to 10 white calls today, or tomorrow we'd only like to go to 13 black calls. You know, we have to go where people call us.
With Channel 5 cameras rolling, Sheriff Bradshaw agreed to talk about findings from our joint investigation with the Palm Beach Post.
I'm not saying we don't make mistakes, and every investigation will not be perfect.
This has gone far beyond giving law enforcement officers the benefit of the doubt.
Last year, Attorney Jack Scarola petitioned the Department of Justice to investigate PBSO for what he describes as a pattern of unnecessary force, and the sheriff's swift tendency, he says, to publicly approve it.
Extremely violent struggle ensued between the suspect and the two deputies. He was trying to get their weapons. The internal affairs people and the supervisors on the scene are the ones who give me this information. So I don't believe that I'm steering this investigation one way or the other.
The sheriff stands by his policies and how his team investigates their own shootings.
The way we do things here, the way we investigate it, is a best practice. They don't leave any stone unturned.
The problem is, how do we make sure that the community knows that what they're getting is the truth?
Here we are again.
To come out and support your personnel is one thing.
We had to take this action.
But you have to remember you have a community to support as well.
He was a nice guy.
And we have an obligation to ensure that we conduct thorough and complete investigations.
He wouldn't hurt a rabbit.
Not just walk up and say, this was a good shooting.
And he didn't deserve to get shot by the police, period.
If you will comply with what the deputies are asking you to do so they can go home at the end of the day, and then if you don't like what happened, then you can complain, everybody's good. That's the system.
Sheriff Bradshaw acknowledged that reports could be more detailed, but says that wouldn't change any of the outcomes. And after we started asking questions, the sheriff announced a new policy requiring deputies report when they point a gun at someone. Tomorrow at 6, he's the last sheriff's deputy who faced charges for shooting a man. Hear the toll pulling the trigger took and the message he has for the man's family. Right now at WPTV.com/lineoffire, see an uncut version of the Stevens shooting, and at mypalmbeachpost.com, more in-depth findings from our joint investigation. I'm Katie LaGrone, WPTV News Channel 5.
And we are hearing from you on this joint examination, those who support probes like this one and those who, among other things, think it is second-guessing lawmen. There's no doubt about the respect due the majority of men and women wearing the badge and protecting our communities night and day. Even so, the trust we place in powerful organizations also demands strong checks and balances and tough questions. And we do see this growing debate in police or deputy-involved shootings around the country. I'll be sitting down to interview PBSO Sheriff Rick Bradshaw on To The Point this week, and that interview will air in full Sunday morning after Meet the Press.
Again, there's some things I'd like to tell you, but I'd rather tell you in person of some things that we've brainstormed and came up with, and they work. And
really?
Things that we do, we should probably we really should probably teach other departments and specialty units on some things that we came up with that work.
Oh, don't keep me in suspense.
Oh, I have to keep you in suspense. I have to.
No.
Yes, I have to. I have to save that one.
All right. Well, give me a hint.
Well, a lot of it has to do with social media.
Oh, social media. Okay.
Yep, a lot of it has to do with social media. Yep, it's amazing. It's amazing what you can do and what you can find out.
Social media, like Facebook?
Oh, absolutely. You would be surprised. And you would be surprised on what you can find off of your phones and certain cameras with GPSs.
Really?
For instance, that creep that has that PBSO talk, the guy named John Mark Dugan.
Uh-huh.
You know that he went to Russia and he started using his camera to take pictures of himself with that Pavel Bourdain and some other people. You know we had the pictures before he ever published them, and we knew where he was at.
You're kidding me.
Nope, had them. I could even tell you what f-stop he used on his camera and what the lighting was.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like magic.
That's incredible.
Yeah, before he ever came back, we had all the pictures.
Oh, my God.
Because we broke into his analytics. We hacked into his analytics.
So here's my issue, so to speak. When you were talking to me yesterday about the guy getting about what his abilities are, I don't know if you Googled me at all, but my dad, I mean, look, there are 60 billionaires in New York City. He's not one of them, but he's worth about $400 million.
Yeah.
And he and his wife got a divorce. Well, my mom. He and my mom got a divorce like, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, he remarried. And the woman that he married is not much older than me. And after they moved in together, his health started really declining.
Oh.
And I went to my police to tell them that I suspected that maybe she was doing something.
Right. Yeah.
But they said that there was nothing they could do because there's no evidence of any crime. And this just occurred to me today when you were telling me about this awesome hacker guy. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I would love to get him up here for a few days. Right. And I don't know technically. I don't. Well, maybe I don't want to know, but you know, if he can do that to Mr. Creepy, is that what we're calling him now, Mr. Creepy?
Yeah.
You know, what would he charge to do that for me?
Well, let's talk about it because that's very interesting.